Hello, I am Say Hi Paul, and welcome to this, what would you call it? An army overview? A showcase video. Welcome to this Ynnari showcase video and general ramble. Whoop! Okay, so I've been asked for a while to do showcase videos on some of my armies, and I've never quite had the time, but I've got, I've just taken the table down from one battle report. I've been filming, about to put it up to film another, and I just had the inclination to point the camera at my Ynnari because I've been filming with them, and I've forgotten how much I absolutely love them, and thought, I want to talk about them. So I've just whacked them all down on the table, and I'm starting to talk about them. This is going to be, I guess, a kind of combo of lore and rules and why I've collected what I've got, and just, yeah, it's a general Ynnari ramble. Okay, so, a brief bit of background for those who don't know who the Ynnari are. Oh God, can I make this brief? Ynnari are a faction of the Eldari who follow Ynnari, who is basically their god of death, who they are trying to awaken, who will then go and kill Slaanesh. That's basically the gist. They are a faction that cut across different Eldari factions, and that's where some of the story comes into it, and that sort of links in with how I've collected the army, because it all starts with this boxed set coming out at the end of 7th in the run-up to 8th. Gathering Storm, I think it was called, with these 3 super gorgeous minis. The Visarch, or Visiarch, however you choose to pronounce it, Ivrain, and the Incarn. And there's a whole load of... It was in the Fall of Baal Tan book. There's a whole load of story about how she basically becomes like the... is she the prophet of Ynnari? I think that's what she's called. I think she's the prophet. And how that happens. And it goes on about It tells the story of how she starts in Cormorant, and then things start to happen to her, and she escapes from Cormorant with some help, and then she goes to different craft worlds, and people join her. She spreads the word of Ynnari. Some people join her, some people hate her, and then she forms a reborn war host. And all the ones over time who join her sort of join the war host. Or there are ones who secretly worship her on their own craft worlds. There's a potential for a very long ramble here. There's a potential for a very long ramble. Blow it. Let's have a very long ramble. So where to start? So in that book, there's it basically starts you off with the gist that you can either collect an unborn war host, reborn war host, close, or you could just use your existing Eldar and sort of add one of these characters into it. And I'm like, yeah, not sure how I feel about that. I don't know if I could do a reborn war host and just put down a few Drakari, a few of these, and a few of those, and some of these. I don't think that'd really... It wouldn't feel right to me, but because there's a whole theme. And I thought, what would be really cool is to... Because there's some artwork in those books of, like, the Dire Avengers. The Dire Avengers in this colour scheme. And the Banshees, and the Witches. And I thought, yeah, actually having a whole army of this would be absolutely freaking amazing. And it was with in one of my many campaigns, all right, 2, with Winters, we were deciding what we were going to play. And this is the campaign called The Death of Hope. If you haven't seen it, I believe it's free to view on deploymentzone.tv. I think the pandemic but they chose to release that for everyone to watch because it's one of their big campaigns. In fact, I'll dig out the link and put it in the video below. If anyone who hasn't seen it, that should be available free to go and see that. There are spoilers in this, just in here. So if you're going to go and watch that, maybe pause this and come back to it. Maybe. Don't know. And I really wanted to do the Ynnari. And what Winters really wanted to do was start big in the campaign and go small. And we had lots of different discussions about what we could do. And we have a very creative process, lots of back and forth and cut and thrust. And so what we decided to do was do a campaign about Eldar that started big, went small, then got big again at the end. And the campaign actually it purports to be about a Latok Eldar, because it starts off within a Latok war host, under the command of... Shoot, can I not remember her name? I know the Farsi, the warlock was called Cronrith. Ilisar the Cronrith. Yeah, Ilisar the Farsi. I think I might be getting that wrong. It's been a while. It's been a few years since we did that, or possibly a few decades. I don't know. Time has kind of warped. So it's all about the all about Crapwater Latok, and they're searching for the Spirit Stone of one of their Farseers that's been calling out to them, the Spirit Stone of Anesh Handroth, and they want to try and recover it before this particular planet gets destroyed by a Tyranid Hive fleet. And so the campaign is about them trying to find the abandoned Spirit Stone of Anesh Handroth. And when they eventually find it and they're about to be slaughtered by Tyranids, this Ynnari war host turns up. So I built and painted this entire war host in complete secret. So no one knew I had it. It was a complete and total surprise. If you were following the campaign, you thought there were like 5 Eldar left alive at the end, and how on earth are they going to defeat all of this? And they open a webway gate, and these guys come pouring out. And there's a Mondo big battle. And it's this entire army. I did the whole army, minus that one, because that is Anesh Handroth, who I painted after that campaign. As you may infer, I did say spoiler alert, as you may infer, they found her Spirit Stone and interred her into a Wraith Seer suit. So that's why I collected the army, because the colour scheme I just thought looked so gorgeous. And I didn't for a minute imagine that Craftworld and Drukhari could sit next to each other and just look so like they belong together. The similarity, GW, hat off, intentional or not, there are elements of the aesthetic for both armies that are common. And when you put them together, you can tell they're different, but you can also tell that they're sort of the same. Yeah, so there was building this army, and the gist of the story is that Yvraine goes around and tries to unite all the Eldari in a single cause, because it's prophesied that the only way that Ynnari will wake is basically at sort of the Eldar version of the End of Days, when all the Eldar die. The god of death will become powerful enough to awake and kill Slaanesh, and that's how She Who Thirsts will be destroyed. But Ynnari starts to wake up sooner, and Yvraine is very much of the opinion... Oh no, is one of her little head things a bit bent? Maybe don't try and do that on camera with your left hand, looking through the lens. And so she becomes convinced that Ynnari can be woken early. And I can't remember whether it's a prophecy, but essentially uniting the 5 crone swords of Eldari legend is how you wake her up. Now, in the story that it goes through, they find 4 of them. She's carrying one, the Viziarch is carrying another, and the Incarn has another, and Prince Uriel has a fourth. And the search is for the fifth and final Crone Sword, which, of course, unless GW want to write factions out of 40k, they will never, ever, 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 ever find. Or there'll be some other twist where it doesn't work or something like that. Anyway, so they go off. Oh, no, hang on. Where am I going? Where am I jumping? I'm jumping around, left, right, centre, forward. So I decided that I wanted the army to reflect all of the forces that the story says are in the Reborn War Host. Because I'm like that with my armies. When I do sort of chaos armies, I want to have everything that's reflective. So word bearers, for example, I always make sure I have demons and cultists and spawn and marines and all these different things. I like to have them all shown. And this is no different. So her story starts off, she is a witch fighting in the arena at Cormoror when there's, I can't remember exactly what happens, but there's basically a massive disruption and a sort of kind of like a warp rift opens up in Cormoror. It's the awakening of Ynnari, or the sort of half awakening of Ynnari. And she sort of feels this transformation come over her. And I was going to say Huron Blackheart. That's so not the right guy. Azrael Vecht instantly orders her slain by the other witches because he gets a sense that she's got something to do with it. And a boatload of incubi and blood brides rush to her side. They know there's something different. They know she's significant. They can feel it. They can sense it. And the incubi and the blood brides help her fight her way out of Cormoror, and they escape using fleet elements. They got on board some ships and they escape Cormoror. And off the back of that, must have refrain. The Visarch is one of the incubi that flocks to her side. So, incubi. That's why we have incubi. It's also why we have witches and a succubus. They are her blood brides. And it's also why we have a Void Raven bomber, because there are Drakari fleet elements. Now, there are other Drakari out here. Obviously, we also have transports. So there's a raider, and I do like doing the transports with the extra crew on them. I hate seeing bare open top transports. It really upsets me. Even this one, because it was crewed by a warrior because the kit comes with witches to put on this one. So it felt wrong not having people hanging off the wings, but that's because if you have witches hanging on it, but these guys are in it, that looks wrong. So that's why. That's why that's like that. Where did that tangent take me? So yes, and then you read later on, different Kabbalite warriors and other Drakari have flocked to her side as well. So we have Kabbalite warriors and Ravager. That's the sort of Drakari element. And the thing with this, right, is that they're all reborn together, despite their individual previous origins and allegiances. They are all here in the service of Ynnari, and they all have a common goal, and they're united and bound together. Harlequins are a little different, but we'll come on to those. We also have Reaver jet bikes. And I'll explain that in a minute when I talk about Ynnari's net. So then one of the first places she goes is Craftworld Bael'tan, and Craftworld Bael'tan is under demonic incursion. There are hordes of Slaanesh demons who are pouring out of the warp, and they're just all over Craftworld Bael'tan. And she turns up and basically whacks one of the Crone Swords in the Infinity Circuit, which wakes up a massive chunk of the spirits coalesce together and form the Incarn, who many refer to as the avatar of Ynnari, a physical manifestation of Ynnari, who basically wakes up. This act, unfortunately, breaks the infinity circuit of Bealtan and shatters it. And Bealtan, as a result, is a shadow of what it was before. But the Incarn wakes up and sees off all of the Slaanesh demons, and a huge number of aspect warriors go to her banner. Many dire avengers. So this is why we have in the army, we have effectively like a Bealtan contingent. We've got units of dire avengers. She always has dire avengers around her because they're the most common warrior aspect, and as warriors flock to her, there are going to be disproportionately more of them. Howling Banshees. I just love Howling Banshees. And an Autarch. It's the only model in the army where I'm not 100% happy with the paint job. I'm not particularly keen on the way I've done his wings, but I haven't returned to him yet to redo them. But I digress. And so, a lot of the others on Bealtan go, no, you're a witch. Look at it. It looks like Slaanesh. And she's like, shut up, you. So they don't all flock to her banner. Some on the craft world believe in Yed and start to follow Yed, but stay on the craft world, and others leave and join the reborn war host and sort of don its colours. So that is the Bealtan contingent. Also, as a lot of stones start to escape from, as a lot of spirits start to leach out of the Infinity Circuit, they whack them all in spirit stones pretty quick and get them into suits, and they start to serve as ghost warriors. Hence the Wraith Blades and the Wraith Lord. Also, enhanced by the fact that when she visits Craft World Eandam, a lot of those ghost warriors, being dead, flock to her side. They sense the presence of the god of death and join her side. There's actually an excerpt in the story where the war host is being chased by the enemy, and a pair of Wraith Knights burst through I was going to say a realm gate, a webway gate, and rescue the war host. And they are Eandam Wraith Knights, and then they join the war host. She goes to Orthwy, and a lot of them, it's the same story. Some believe her. Some of those who believe join. Some stay. Some disbelieve and want her out. But we have we have an Orthwy contingent. We have Guardians, Farseer, Warlock, jet bikes. So we've got a large representation of different Eldari factions. Now, one of the Eldari groups that works most closely with her is initially at least, is the Mask of the Midnight Sorrow. So they're Harlequins. These guys are not the Mask of the Midnight Sorrow. These guys are the Penumbral Mask. However, because a lot of this is instigated by Eldrad Ulthran. He can foresee the rise of Ynnari, and so he, working with the Mask of Midnight Sorrow, he goes off, and it's a lot of some of the rituals he's doing that actually cause this awakening that happens that manifests in the centre of Cormoror, and so on. And he actually gets kicked out of Orthway for doing it because they think he's reckless and yeah. So he gets the boot. So Orthway are now actually sort of three factions, if you like. Some of them are with the Ynnari. Some of them are wandering around with Eldrad Ulthran, going, "Oh, it's lonely out here." And the others are the kind of like the purists on the craft world who are going, "No, look at her. It looks like Slaanesh. What is wrong with you? You're being manipulated." And they're like, "No, we're not. No, we're not. We are totally going to go and kick Slaanesh in the shin and then nut it in the quest to awaken Ynnari to bypass the prophecy so that not all Eldari have to die and forever remove the dread of having their souls devoured in the afterlife or having to live in a perpetual dream state in the Infinity Circuit. However, the Mask of the Midnight Sorrow, they do a lot of work with her initially, but being Harlequins, they sort of flit around and wander off. The mask that spends most of their time with the Reborn Warhost are the Penumbral Mask. Now, obviously, GW wrote these guys in because they match the colour scheme, but they do. I love them. I think they're so cool. But they're not an exact carbon copy. They're not exactly the same. You can tell they're a little bit different. But, I do love them. The thing that I find really interesting about the Harlequins is, from a narrative point of view, with the Penumbral Mask, their god isn't dead. Everyone else, their pantheon just got wiped out. These have the Keeler Menshikane is still kicking about in some respects in the form of the avatar of the bloody-handed god, and that does influence their war aspects. But these guys worship Ynnari. However, the Harlequins also worship Kegara, the laughing god. That's their primary deity. And what I think is interesting is how those two things interact. It's not spelt out terribly well in the book, because very few things narratively are spelt out in codices anymore. There are much more about rules now, and all sorts of similar things. But I'm not going to get hung up on that. But what you can infer from various passages is that the dance that they do varies depending on which god they are kind of serving or paying homage to. They can dance the dance of Ynnari, and they are effectively Ynnari. They can also, on a different day, dance one of the many dances of Kegara, and they are Harlequins in that respect. So they come and they go. Now, unfortunately, the Penumbral Mask doesn't have their own mask rules. It's not one of the official ones in the book. So when playing them separately, I have to use one of the others. But they're not really a big enough army to play separately at the moment. There's only about 600 points in them. I've got the rest, but they're in the queue. They're all in the queue, and they're not the most straightforward models to paint. Those little diamonds take forever. I'm sure there's a song about that. Diamonds take forever. Yes. Some of the other reasons behind the various different units are the formations from back in the day. Obviously, this started up as 7th Ed, and his 7th Ed formations were a big thing. There was one called either the Net of Ynnari or Ynnari's Net. If you had all three types of bikers in one formation, you got a thing. If you had... There was another one. I think it was if you had Dire Avengers, Witches, and Harlequin Troop, that gave you something else. And there was a Spirit Warrior one, whereas if you had a Spirit Seer, Wraith Guard, Wraith Lord, and Wraith Knight, you got something else as well. So that's one of the reasons for some of the combinations. I made my own transfers for these as well. You can see them best on the Wraith Guard, where it's black on bone, because there's not much staining. If you look at this one here, you can see the line of the transfer paper. Now, if I were doing these days, I'd actually go around those with a very fine brush and paint around them. But I am not one for going back to models once I've finished them for some reason. So even though today I wouldn't do them exactly the same, but look at the tiny, tiny ones that I managed to get on their heads there. I don't know if it's going to focus on those, but they were a challenge. So that's how did I do those? It's transfer printer paper. You print the you print the image onto them, then you print it off, and then you set it with varnish. Then obviously then use them as transfers. What's difficult, so you notice on the Dire Avengers, they've got the Dire Avenger shrine rune, on their heads, and that's because I printed out a load of red ones, a load of black ones, and a load of bone-coloured ones to do a contrast on different. You see, these guys have got the rune of Ynnari. Ah, yeah, 2 different runes, right? This sort of cup-shaped one is the rune of Ynnari, and the sort of squiggly one, that's the rune of the Incarn. This gal. But yes, what I discovered when printing them out is that a lot of they're quite translucent on. From a printing point of view, black is obviously a very solid colour, and if a printer is printing black on white paper, it has to do it very solid for it to look black. Not so much with red and cream. They effectively print off as translucent. Now, I did this recently with my House Commentis guys, where I hoped that a new printer would do them better in bone, but what I actually ended up having to do was paint over them. Used it as an outline and painted over them. So yeah, the transfers were a mixed bag with these guys. I liked them, I enjoyed them. So in terms of how I actually play the army, it's difficult because the rules that they first had for these guys were lovely and flexible and fluffy and narrative, and they were quite powerful and got used in certain ways by certain types of players, and they got hit with a massive nerf mallet and made more and more competitive compliant, which made it harder and harder to make them narrative. So back in the day, all you had to do was say, you pick your army using the Eldari keyword. Done. Then you say it's Ynnari. Done. Then you get access to all the Ynnari stuff, and you get the, what was it called? Soul Burst ability. So if you kill an enemy unit, if a unit dies within 12 inches of you, you nominate a unit to basically be energized by those dead spirits, and then you can do an action, which might be move, charge, fight, shoot. So what you had a lot of were Wraithguard with distort cannons, going up to something, deleting them with like strength 12, AP minus 4. Sorry, back in the day it would have been AP 1 weapons, doing tons and tons of damage, and then going, oh, I killed them, I can shoot them again, and so on and so on. So they hit it with the mallet and said, right, your detachment has to be all Craftworld or all Drakari or all Harlequin. And the only way you can make it Ynnari is by buying one of these characters and putting them in it. Which makes it really hard to do what I consider to be a proper Reborn Warhost. Because a proper Reborn Warhost's got to have all 3 flavours in it. And the Reborn Warhost is so big now, it's a faction in its own right. You don't have every Ultramarine, every Imperial army being led by Guilliman. Because he's the only one, you know. What was in that box? It was Guilliman, Crawl, and no, it was Guilliman, Cypher, and some Grey Knight dude. You don't have all of your Imperial armies must be led by one of these 3. And okay, these aren't as big as the Imperium, but still though. So what I do, it's what I have to do for my narrative games, for the games that I do on my channel and at home and with my friends. And we also did this with Winters on Deployment Zone for the Death of Hope campaign, is we just say, do you know what? we just use the Eldari keyword to pick the army, because we're picking something to be narrative, not to gain a sort of rules advantage. So there's a campaign that I'm filming at the moment, which is what I filmed the first 2 episodes, filming the last one immediately after this, and they're going up next week. In theory, if you're watching this video, the campaign should have started, but it's a Ynnari campaign, and what I'm doing is I'm using the Eldari keyword to pick the detachments, and I'm removing the requirement to have one of these 3 characters, kind of, turning it back to what it was. So that particular army is led by Anesh Handroth, the Wanderer. Even though GW have stiffed me in the Imperial Armour Codex, because she used to be at HQ and she's not now. And she used to have the character word and she doesn't now. So that's made my life more complicated. But she's the character that leads that force. And I've done something similar with the other 2 factions. So the Slaanesh faction, Emperor's Children of Slaanesh Demons, I've said, do you know what? We can pick that using the Chaos and Slaanesh keyword, and say actually some of these abilities that affect Slaanesh and affect demons and affect Slaanesh demons, if everyone's got the keywords, they're going to apply. Also doing something kind of similar with the Iron Hands, but that's a little bit more narrative, to sort of go back to the clan companies being their own independent mini chapters, rather than all your veterans come from Clan Company 1 and all your scouts come from Clan Company 10. No, it never used to be that. They've changed that. That's anyway, I'm digressing more onto Iron Hands now. But basically, in that campaign, I've doing you know what? Let's narrative. Let's turn the narrative up to 11 on these 3 forces and make them all a little bit special, a little bit different in the way we pick the forces. So there should be an intro video to that somewhere around here on the channel, where I do a little bit of a story time narrative as a lead into it, which has been lots and lots and lots of fun to do. And I'm doing it right. I'm doing it in 3 chapters. Chapter 1, Chapter 2, Chapter 6. Sorry, no, not Chapter 6, Chapter 3. And each one is going to be 3 games. And I'm going to release them sort of gradually. What I have been doing, both on my YouTubes and on the members stuff, is running lots of campaigns at once and sort of dripping in a game like a month or every 6 weeks. I'm leaning away from that now, because that's made it more difficult to get the hobby focus that I need to get units ready for future games and future campaigns and all that good stuff. So what I'm trying now is, okay, so rather, if I know I'm going to do a sort of 9-game campaign, I'm going to do it in 3 sections. And I'm going to run the first section all the way through, then stop. And then I'll be moving on to something else. Then at a later date, I'll come back and do section 2 and run that all the way through and stop. So this campaign, called Maiden World, is it'll be on it's a members one, so it'll be in the members lounge. If you're interested, check out the links below. But it's a I don't know how I was going to finish that sentence. I don't even know how I started that sentence. So for those of you who are interested, and I have a members area where level 2 channel members get to see exclusive content, which is mostly bat reps, approximately 1 a week. It's not always every week, but it's most weeks. And they also get access to a Say Hypal Discord, where all sorts of people who enjoy my battle reports and are therefore, in theory, are like-minded. We hang out and chill online with swapping pics, painting tips, narrative. We've got a nice section where people talk about the lore of their armies. It's all really cool and chilled, and everyone in there is a channel member, so it is some way like-minded to the kind of stuff I do. So if you're interested in that, those links are below. Hashtag shameless advert. It's not actually hashtagged or called that. What I just said was a shameless advert. But right? If I want to live the dream and make campaigns like this for a living, capitalism, man. Chasing the dream. I'm chasing the dream. So, is there anything else to say about these guys and gals? There probably is. There's probably a ton of stuff I've forgotten, but time is encroaching. I need to put all these away, build a table, and play a game, and try and be in bed before midnight. And I've got to eat at some point as well. And the Lemmy monster will be clawing at the door at some point, so I'll have to go in and give her a fuss and give her a dinner. It's not due for a couple of hours, it's only 4 o'clock. But when she decides it's dinner time, it's like a wolverine. Okay, I hope you've enjoyed this video, and you never know, there may be more like it, there may not. Don't forget, if you're so inclined, like, subscribe, thumbs up, comment, or not, or dislike if you haven't liked this. It's all good. I don't know how to stop talking, so we'll say goodbye there. Take care, stay safe, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye for now.